welcome to Wrong Way, and this is the V11 review.
Była gleba.
Wrong way. Okay, now that we're done with the intro, a huge, ginormous thank you to InMotion for providing me this wheel for testing purposes, and to mywheel.com who made this thing happen. So without any further ado, let's just see how this wheel stacks up against a non-suspension wheel, which is the Galway MSS by EUC service. So let's briefly talk about the suspension in the InMotion V11, and it's absolutely amazing. I mean, it's not just a new 18-inch wheel, the suspension really adds another dimension to the electric unicycle. And it's not just the suspension that makes this wheel amazing, it's also the footplate placement, it's the lighting, it's the overall build quality and finish, but that's what we'll talk about later. And my main point about the suspension is that now the V11 is the wheel I ride all the time, even though it's not as fast as my MSS or doesn't have this amount of range, because it just absorbs the bumps so good. It has the necessary compression. You can adjust how strong the suspension is. I usually ride at 110 psi and I have 50 psi in the negative chamber, and this just makes riding this wheel a joy. And a thing that I didn't hear talking about so much in other reviews is that the footplate placement is so high. I mean, this makes turning possible at way steeper angles, and I just couldn't get this unicycle to scrape the pedals.
It's impossible to scrape the pedals. Let's take a look at the difference. I know.
Now look, I know that riding downstairs is not the thing you do every day, but the suspension makes the V11 just so safe. I mean, I can ride everywhere at 40-50 kilometers an hour in places where usually it would start to get dangerous on my MSS, just because the MSS just keeps bouncing around and has a lower footplate placement, and on the V11 I can just take the turns sharply. I can fly 40, 45, 50 kilometers an hour at full speed and not worry that my wheel will bounce somewhere. I don't feel the road as well as on the MSS, so the MSS still is the, performance king, and it feels so planted on a good road. But let's face it, if you travel anywhere in the city, you have curbs, you have bumps, potholes, and manhole covers. It's just reasonable to go with the V11. But the suspension in the InMotion V11 does also come with a small amount of setbacks. For example, it's really difficult to access the valve to your tire, and the valves at the bottom side of the damper are really exposed, and if you hit something, well, this might end up badly. On the top of the shell, there are also 2 additional valves to the negative chamber, and if you fall and somehow damage the top like Sean did, then this will turn out very expensive as well. The wheel is also rather on the heavy side at 28 kilograms, as heavy as the Monster, and the battery is still smaller, and I found myself needing to pump up the suspension system every so often, maybe 100 kilometers or so, because it was losing air pressure, which is a common thing in all air suspension shocks. So especially if you live in a very cold climate like Sweden, Finland, Norway, Canada, you might find yourself bottoming out the damper in the winter quite often, because that's just how these types of shocks react to cold weather. When it comes to performance, the InMotion V11 is okay, but as usual with the InMotion wheels, they rather keep it on the safe side. When it comes to performance, I would just compare it to a Kingsong 18 XL when it comes to power. You don't really feel the additional 200 watts of power in the motor. I can also overpower it way easier than any Gotway 100 volt wheel, and because you have the suspension travel, the delivery is rather, on the smooth and sleepy side than on the performance side. Being used to a Godway wheel and riding on the street, I found myself tilting back a lot and always hearing the beeps at 50, even 45, 48 kilometers an hour. The lower the battery level, the slower you will go, which is also good to some extent because you will avoid a cutoff. I really like the tilt back in the InMotion wheel. It's very short and tilt you back a bit fast, but doesn't throw you off. And a great thing about it is that when you have 30% battery, it will just tilt you back at a slower speed, and it's really helpful to avoid a cutoff. And there's also the smart BMS, which will help you with the power delivery. All in all, I think that InMotion did a really good job with the safety and speed on the wheel. I just wish this was a 100-volt wheel with a bigger battery, so maybe not 100%. Good job. Anyways, I did also do a range test on the wheel. I got to 60 kilometers of driving, with regular speeds, 30 to 50 kilometers an hour, rather a fast range test. And then it tilted me back, and on the go home mode, I could do another 7 kilometers. And the cool thing about it is that it tilts you back ever so slower, so at the end I was just riding 3 kilometers an hour, but I could get home, and I did, avoid any too big strain on the battery, which could lead once again to a cutoff. So this is a okay performance, but I do miss a bit of a range of the MSS, not talking about wheels that have over 2 kilowatt hours of battery. But still, I just would take a charger with me, which is pretty cool because it's totally silent, no fan included. And when InMotion sends me the second charger, I think I'll be, it will be enough to ride the wheel all the time, but yeah, it could do with a bigger battery. So V11F, I'm waiting. Let me also guide you through the features of the V11 for a bit. First of all, the lights, it's awesome. I love that there is a daytime running light in the V11, so I can go for a park very slow. I don't need to, turn on the main light, and it's always on. That's how I set it, and it's a great feature. I always ride with a light on, even when it's daylight, and having this LED ring is just the dream, and it looks super cool. I also like the bright rear tail lights, and when you ride in the night with the main light on, it's the best in the market, by far for now. And the beam is wide, and it also doesn't blind the people, which I'm really used to on the MSS. I'm blinding people all the time there. So it does also come with a speaker, but there is no Bluetooth audio, and this I miss a lot. I would ride with music all the time on other wheels. I just like it. And it also comes with a great trolley handle. It's in the right spot, it has the right height, and it also speaks quality because it's made of metal. And it's this cool, in two divided shapes, so you have a handle and then the trolley handle pops up, and yep, perfect placement, perfect height, and it also locks in place in 2 positions, so there's nothing to complain about. The mudguards also work well. There's a kickstand, which is a seldom very rare feature in unicycles. It's not the sturdiest one, and you can top over the wheel quite easily, but it's there and it's useful as well. The pedals are also cool, big. They have pretty nice grip tape actually, and yeah, when it comes to features, well, there's nothing I miss except, once again, for the Bluetooth speaker and side RGB lighting. Yeah, that's the thing I miss as well. I also had to do some yoga mat side pads on the wheel because the standard ones just were too slippery and the wheel was too narrow. I couldn't accelerate enough, and I didn't have enough grip on the wheel. So yeah, additional side pads or a different design InMotion would be a welcome feature. If you don't have any side pads, just buy a yoga mat, cut it into pieces and stick it to the side of the InMotion V11. Few words on the app and the tech in the wheel. The cool thing is that there are software updates for InMotion wheels that can be pushed over the air. And here you see the main screen of the app where you can, for example, lock the wheel, turn the lights on or off. And in the settings menu, there's lots of things. You can turn on the daytime running light, adjust the brightness of the main light, You can disable the lift switch, put it into transport mode, adjust the 2 modes. I would always use the off-road mode. There's also the fancy mode. You have to tap 5 times on features to enable 55 km/h top speed. There is also the pedal angle adjustment, so you don't need to calibrate the wheel each time you want to change your pedal angle. You can also customize your sounds or turn off the sounds altogether. I mean, yeah, there's lots of settings here, and I really like this app. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is the build quality. And all in all, the shape, the form, the materials, yeah, they all just scream quality. And by the way, there's also a flap in the rear and a USB charge port, which I did use once actually, so that's pretty cool. It has that. There's also 2 charge ports in the rear. But anyway, the quality is awesome. Maybe one thing I would like to add maybe in the future version is to have more structural rigidity or some sort of roll cage like we saw on the Veteran, because this wheel, when it falls, I think it's quite fragile. There's also some sort of clack when I lean forwards and backwards on the wheel. It doesn't really disturb the riding, and InMotion told me that it's, you know, just how it rides. So I did already 500 kilometers on the wheel, so stay tuned for a further review to see how it behaves over a longer period of time. But if you're still here, leave a massive like on the video, share it to show your friends, and yeah, wait for the S18 review. The Veteran is coming, the Gotway X, my X is coming. Yeah, exciting times. So, see you in the next episode. See you soon.